unless they did a bad job tuning it and you're heavily committed and this is your hobby, which I would encourage people to do. They should, if this is something you're into,
Yeah, it's
just
pretty
do
cool.
it.
If you look at any hobby, you always find a strong DIY, do-it-yourself component to them, you know. And a lot of people like to build their own stuff. They enjoy it. They get like anyone, when you make something, you get the satisfaction of knowing you built it yourself. And one thing, but you don't see in audio, it's trickier because you tend to need skill sets like the ability to solder. You know, which, I mean, you could self-teach. You could teach yourself this stuff. I'm sure there's YouTube videos on, but the skill levels. I mean, did you ever remember when you first learned how to solder? How bad it looked.
You were off, right?
You know, so
Takes years.
It's difficult. Yeah, but you know, I mean, we could talk about it. It's, you know, the thing is that, like, you see DIY kits for speakers, and basically they send you the box, the woofer, the tweeter, the crossover components, and you assemble the whole thing yourself. So you're kind of avoiding the labor and learning at the same time. And when I was younger, they had kits like, you know, 501 Lafayette where you can wire things together and make an AM radio.
They still have that stuff. It's just not very popular.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, now that Radio Shack's
Shack is gone.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they used to have that stuff where you could build things.
That was great.
Yeah, that was cool stuff. It taught you how you could put things together to make it function, to do something.
But now that's electronics, hardware, and it's not really... Hardware is kind of the easy part today. Now you could buy almost anything very cheap that does typically what you want. The software is where you come into problems. And really, it seems like what people like about DIYing in the audio community is you could kind of get an understanding for the whys, the hows. You could build something tailored to your particular specifications, your room, what you prefer. And it can be considerably cheaper because some of the stuff, especially high-end, can be very, very expensive. Now, this is where it gets difficult because you could lead into it thinking, oh, I'll DIY myself some speakers and I'll save so much money. And then you come to figure out that you're just tweaking and modding and buying new stuff over, and it really isn't cheap. If you actually want world-class performance, maybe it could be cheaper, but I wouldn't count on it. It could be very expensive and take you a long time.
You guys have done like your own sub in the past.
Yeah.
Just the woodwork alone takes a bit of a skill set and
It's a lot.
Tools, and
Yep.
you got to be able to, you know, there's a lot that comes together, and then to try to finish it, make it look good is a whole process. You
There's
can't
always
just,
unforeseen
finishing,
issues.
yeah.
Finishing is very difficult.
you can't just rattle can the thing. It's just not going to really.
Well, I mean, you can.
it's not
just-
going to look
If you
good.
want it to look like a finished product, it's very difficult.
Yeah, that's the tough part. To me, the cabinetry is the hardest part on speaker builds.
Yeah.
You know, and
Well, with kits these days, though, they everything comes pre-drilled, pre-routed. Everything just drops in.
yeah, right. Yeah, the
It's a lot
CNC made
easier
the
than it
part.
used to be. Yeah.
Yeah, then
that's
it'll
true.
kind of go together.
Yeah. So you're just turning screws and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, the soldering is a cool skill to learn, you know, if you're doing speaker crossovers and stuff. And I think a lot of those give you give you a PC board with the components, and you got to put them.
Soldering's cheap to start out in, so yeah, give it a try.
right.
And it's really not that hard, but if you really want to be able to do more advanced stuff, do a really good job on complex assemblies, it'll take a little while, but it's cheap and forgiving, so give it a shot.
Well, yeah, learning about the shrink back of insulations. and
Right.
knowing-
Yeah, on wire. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
little more difficult, I think, to build cables for the first time.
Yeah.
You get it. You're going to ultimately get the part too hot.
Yeah.
You know, you got to at least, if you're going to start soldering, at least get a temperature-controlled station.
You need
They're
it.
not expensive.
Not
It has a
20
volume
bucks,
knob
yeah.
on it. You want that. You need to vary the temperature so you,
You need
don't
temperature
melt
control
things.
because inevitably people get a cheap iron and it's just on. It just gets hot,
It's-
and you
that's
leave
brutal.
it plugged in, it gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and you have no control. And you put it on a piece of wire, and now it's cold.
Well, the other problem is those are usually low power, the ones.
Yeah.
And so then if you have like a big
wire.
anything big heat sink
Yeah.
essentially, then you don't have enough power to heat it up and you can't actually solder to it.
Irons
Ran
are
into that.
under $40 or so for cheap
Yeah.
ones now. So it's
Yeah,
not-
you want a temperature-controlled station. You know, they're even under $100. But yeah, without that, you're beating your head against the wall.
But onto the question.
Yeah.
You see people DIYing speakers. It's somewhat common in some circles. And there seems to be a lot of people doing totally different things. There seems to be people going outside of the standard box. However, with headphones, pretty uncommon. usually when you see people doing what they call DIYing the thing, it's taking a headphone and modifying it. And it could be somewhere from a very trivial modification, like putting different stuff inside the headphone, inside the housing. And it could be all the way up to a bit more extreme. You start changing the enclosure, you start changing out components. Maybe you swap drivers and you change the interior build, you change the housing. But usually people are taking parts and pieces from existing headphones and they're putting them together in different ways or modifying them slightly.
Well,
and it's not really what you see with speakers where it's really more
Well, I think the problem is
round up.
getting parts like that go together to make a shell
Right.
that it's just like kind of speaker cabinet. It's the same situation. You need a headband, you need sides that hold the driver.
Yeah, well, at least there's somewhat standards in speakers, like 8-inch woofers,
Yeah.
12-inch. You know, you need a 12-inch hole. Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's
you
some
could-
standard.
Yeah, you can interchange components where on a headphone it's a little more difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on top of that, a headphone is considerably less forgiving. You could get away with a wrong design in a speaker, and the size and the weight don't matter. So usually you could kind of like throw things at it to solve the problem. If you have a resonance in the enclosure of your speaker, you could put more wood in it or whatever. You could dampen it with something,
Yeah,
and you
keep
could
adding
put
bracing.
500 pounds of sand in it if you want, right? It doesn't really matter. Whereas with a headphone, that's very impractical.
Yeah.
If you have a problem, a lot of times you have to solve it with a technical solution, not just like putting more stuff in it. A lot of times it doesn't really solve the problem, it'll kind of mask it. So if you're looking for world-class performance in a headphone, I think the reality is it's just really hard.
Yeah, there's a lot of the problem with headphones in particular is there's a lot of every component needs to be, what would you say, optimized, so to speak,
Like
to work
system
with each
integration.
other.
Yeah, system.
Yeah.
It's a whole like compact system.
Yeah, it's like a tiny room
Yeah.
with a tiny speaker
Yeah.
Right.
right by your ear. So every mistake you make in the
It's almost
DIY side,
amplified.
yeah, right.
Yeah, because with speakers, a lot of times your biggest issue with the sound of a speaker is going to be, in most part, your room,
Right.
maybe even amplification if you have an anemic amplifier. But the enclosure, the speaker, the drivers, oddly enough, can be often the least significant factor in the sound of the system.
Yeah, people have done some weird shit with
Yeah,
speakers.
yeah, like they have like a sale, and they have like speakers for like $1.20, and you buy 50
Yeah,
of them.
you could make it work,
right.
right?
Just throw them on a huge baffle.
right.
Sure.
The guys make open
Yeah.
baffle speakers.
Right, you don't
There's
even
no
have an
cabinet.
enclosure.
Right.
It's just
Yeah,
speakers.
Just fires to the
You
rear
can
of
make
the
it
room.
work.
Yeah.
But the room, if it's really bad, you can't really make it work very well. You can't really design a speaker to work very well in a very bad
Headphones
room.
are kind of like that too, because the room is tiny and the room still matters, but it needs to be acoustically set up for the driver.
Yeah, but with a headphone, you're building the room too. And the trouble is, these aren't really components that work the way people think. It's not like this driver is perfect and you put it in anything and it's perfect. It's only perfect in this enclosure, the way it's tuned in this little box it's in, with these ear pads, with whatever materials are in and around it, and how it's set up. If you put it in another enclosure, it could be awful.
I don't think anyone sells DIY kits for headphones, do they?
Um,
I mean, on the lower end of things, their headphones are cheap
They probably have
enough
like
where
little kids' toy kits or something, but I don't think it's actually like a serious kit
Yeah.
because it would be so impractical. People just buy cheap headphones. And
all right.
Yeah,
that's a
that's
starting
like
block.
typical like Grados, like the example of everybody
Yeah,
modifies
right.
them because they're relatively cheap.
Yeah.
But then some people take it to extreme where I've seen people like, they build a whole new wood enclosure and everything, make new headbands. So they could literally replace every part except for the driver.
Really?
Yeah, some people get really deep into it, but
Well,
then it requires a lot of skill then, though, to make
Yeah.
it actually look nice.
Well, and that's the other thing too. The drivers are difficult to come by that are good too. I mean, you can't just use any speaker and a headphone.
You just got to buy the
You know,
headphone,
yeah.
take the driver out.
And of
That's
course,
one
all
way,
the
yeah.
all the better headphones are all custom-made drivers by the company. They don't really sell them.
Right.
You can find some
Yeah.
knockoff drivers here and there, speakers, but it's
Yeah.
really not.
Well, the
same.
driver could be like half the cost of the headphone. So if they were to sell it separately, not only would most people not be able to do a good job, but it would probably be very expensive. And the demand is probably so low. It's just
And at that point, you're better off
impractical.
buying a used set that somebody already figured
Yeah.
out and it works.
right.
So it's kind of weird if you think about it. I mean, it's surprising. I'm actually thinking about the fact that it's surprising that it is so light in the DIY community. I mean, we ran into guys when we first started doing this that were trying to make planer drivers
Yeah.
and having a
Yeah,
difficult
that's pretty
time
cool.
of it.
Yeah.
You know, and they were impressed that we were able to get away with what we got away with, so to speak, or whatever you want to call it. we were doing a free or damp driver, and they said, well, we weren't able to do that on a DIY setting at all, type thing. And I've never seen that before. And I don't know, we just did it. We didn't think it was going to be a limitation, but bottom line is that there is a underground movement of that. But I think now the size and scale of this niche industry we're in is such a point where you can probably buy just about anything you want ready to go, instead of spending weeks or months buying a bunch of parts to try to make something.
Yeah, well, I guess we started as technically DIY,
Well, yeah,
Most people do,
everyone does.
And so we know from firsthand how long it took to figure it out.
Yeah, to get to this level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a long time. So, I think speaker building's a little different because you're learning soldering skills, and I mean it's bigger parts. I guess that's the thing. It's kind of like some people build kit cars too, and to me, oh my God, that's a lot of work. Like assembling a whole car from scratch.
Or some people build models.
Yeah, even
Same
just a
kind of
model.
thing.
And when I was a kid, I did some models.
Yeah.
But if you like that, if that's your hobby, if that's what you're into,
Yeah.
it's cool to do stuff like that, right? It's if you have nothing better to do with your time and you enjoy it, why not?
Right.
And it would be cool to see more people do DIY headphone stuff, but it is oddly uncommon. I guess it's just not really practical.
Yeah, you're seeing a little bit more of it, like people with 3D printers where they're affordable, and so someone throws up a file online, right? You can print a part for something.
Sure.
But it's still not a complete headphone. It's
Right.
just one part.
Yeah, it's a small component that changes something about it.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the reality of it is you really don't have a comprehensive kit form for a headphone. Or even if you did, what would it sound like?
Well, yeah. I think the biggest thing is it's like this with a lot of things, is that that you can get pretty good headphones pretty affordably these days.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, yeah, if you want to spend the time on it, you can, but you could just buy this already done and it's already proven, for not that much.
Yeah, in fact, the way the world's been going over the years, the decades, and people, the younger generation using their hands less and less, that kind of lends itself going to future generations just not bothering when making something because
Right.
it's it's almost a commodity. It's a disposable.
That's kind of how the market's
product,
moving.
Yeah.
And it's somewhat unfortunate, but it is understandable at the same time.
Yeah.
It makes sense in the current climate that you're going to see less and less DIY because it wasn't that long ago when the stuff didn't exist, but now most things exist. And really the question is affordability. But if there's something that's really high end, that's spectacular, and you want to emulate it, replicate it, or do it yourself for less, a lot of times it really isn't practical. It may seem practical. The components can't cost more than a few $100s, but they're selling it for thousands. Maybe, but
Yeah.
what would it cost you to make one,
Yeah.
right?
That's the
A
problem.
lot.
The first one is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's probably never going to be better unless they did a bad job tuning it and you're heavily committed and this is your hobby, which I would encourage people to do. If this is something you're into,
Yeah, it's
just
pretty
do
cool.
it. It's cool, but don't expect it'll be perfect out the gate. Expect it'll be years and years and cost probably an order or several orders of magnitude more than you expect.
I guess that's the bummer with it. And bummer is an old school term, right? But the
sure.
thing is, you go through all the work, right? Let's say you do have a 3D print file, you print the parts.
Yeah.
You go through all the work, sand it smooth, drill the holes, whatever you got to do to make this thing assemble into a headphone, figure out how to make a headband. You put it all together and it sounds like shit. And I mean, that's probably more than likely going to happen because now you
Almost a
got to
guarantee.
tune it.
Yeah, right.
You got to figure out what this driver's doing in this material you just printed, and
Right.
and that it's a bummer because you hit that point, you're like, I went through all this work and I hate it. I mean,
Right.
maybe some people like their Frankenstein type outfit, but
Maybe.
it tends to not go together as a cohesive whole.
It's hard to make it something that's marketable that people actually want.
Well, I guess it goes for anything. It's like food, spending all this time working on a meal and getting all these expensive ingredients,
right.
and then you just not liking it.
Yeah, but is it actually good?
Is it good?
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah, that is a problem in the end.
I thought about 3D printing stuff, like headphone related things for a bit now, because it's getting to the point where it's actually practical. And I think it's kind of cool. You could dump a file on the internet and other people could make a physical object out of it. The trouble is, generally speaking, especially for headphones, since these things could be so sensitive, the detail required to be able to actually have somebody print a thing that does something to enhance the sound or functionality or whatever, to be able to manipulate something properly. The detail required in the print is pretty considerable. And there are printers like the resin-based printers that would be able to resolve that detail. But You need to hold tight tolerances a lot of times, and the material used is critical.
You really got to know your printer.
Yeah, and you also need to specify what material to
Oh.
be used to print in. So it makes it kind of challenging because if it's cured differently at a different temperature, it has different characteristics, and it could or could not be a problem. And if your tolerances are off or it doesn't line up, or these dimensions are slightly off, then these peaks or valleys that you were supposed to correct got shifted.
Well, bottom line, the guy that created the file was created it for his particular printer.
Right.
Now you go to use it and it's bleh.
It's hard in the hobbyist
ain't
machine
coming out.
to get dimensional accuracy across a bunch of different machines.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, the resin's not that cheap. I mean, each
That's
try,
true.
it's not like $1, you know.
No, but it's affordable enough.
Yeah.
It would be cool to see this encouraged more, but it is unfortunately very impractical. It's just so hard to get something that works. And I guess that's an issue with headphones. It's not about what it looks like. Like, it needs to actually work. The performance is what matters. So if the characteristics of the resin you use are different than the one that the person that designed it used, it won't perform the way they measured or showed or described. Unfortunately, the whole system's critical. And you could specify the resin used. You could specify the printer, and that matters a bit less. But still, it's down to the results. It's up to the end user to know whether or not it works. It's not really at the point where it's like you hit a button and it comes out and it
this-
works.
This isn't just about headphones; it's about any 3D print card.
Anything, yeah.
You know,
Sure.
which I guess really would. So let's say you need a tool you're going to build for whatever, or a jig to do something, right? I mean, you made some new jigs lately with our stuff. You actually
Yeah.
farmed out the printing of it, right? Because we couldn't print it here properly, right?
Our machine wouldn't do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You needed such tolerance that we don't have a $150,000 printer here to do it, 3D printer to do it. So
Actually, our machine has better tolerance as that machine. It's just I couldn't get the flatness.
oh yeah.
It's just I couldn't stop it from curling.
Yeah, so it's stupid things like that where, you're beating your head against the wall and the machine just isn't designed to work, to make that part. Just ain't designed to do it.
And even when we got that part, it wasn't perfect
It
either.
wasn't good, no.
Yeah, right.
But that's
Yeah.
always the critical misunderstanding with 3D prints. People think that it works a little different than it is. They think it's like it prints a part, and they think the part's good.
like a copier.
Yeah,
Yeah,
They
kind of
think-
like a
they think in
it,
two
it
dimensions.
makes a thing that you
Replicator,
see
yeah.
online. It really isn't the case, especially if you have the hot glue style machines. The layer adhesion can be very problematic, and how you tune the printer machine you use, the plastic you use and stuff like that, the temperatures and stuff like that, the conditions it's all hyper critical.
I'm sure anyone that's tried it knows already the
Huge
pitfalls of it.
problem.
Which I mean,
Yeah.
bottom line is you got to really know your printer. You got to know how to use it, and you got to understand its limitations. And that's what you're bound by, right? That you can only make so many parts with this printer, and
Well,
you know
time's
it.
a factor too. Yeah. I
Well,
mean,
that's true.
you spend all this
Yeah.
time making one part, and it's like
over and over
yeah,
again
yeah.
to try to get it right.
And again, frustrating.
Yeah, right.
But as a tool, a 3D printer is phenomenal because you could buy them now very cheap that are pretty good. And if you're experienced, you have a lot of care and finesse, you could produce exceptional parts with them.
You're spending hundreds of hours learning how to use it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Huge time.
And
though.
that's cool in itself. That's a hobby right there, and that's a skill set
Yep,
too. I mean,
absolutely.
you could use that for going forward
And
in
not just
jobs or
headphones,
whatever.
anything.
Yeah. So I mean, and learning how to do that is almost like learning how to run a CNC machine, right? Or
It's a rung blow maybe, but it's
something's
in
making
similar
a
level.
part, and you're designing
Yeah.
it. That's kind of rewarding in itself to me, to be able to actually have back in the day we didn't have these toys, so the best we could do is graphic software,
Right.
and print a poster or print some piece of literature, with text and graphics. Back in the day, that was you get an inkjet printer, right? Like wow,
Sure.
now you got nice color, vibrant color. You make 10 pieces and the thing screws up and the ink flows all over the place. But you could do those 10 pieces and make them look really good. I just remember the challenges with even just printing things back in the day, which you guys don't even worry about because you grew up with a laser color and it
Yeah.
just shoots out 100
Well, I remember
pages a
you
minute.
yelling at the printer all the time.
Oh my God, it just never ended,
Yeah.
And if you didn't use it for like a couple days, the ink jets would dry out.
Oh, yeah.
You're screwed. You got to replace everything. And
Now $50, you can get a printer that
Tell me about
it. Just
it.
prints fine right out of the box,
Yeah.
and that's
Well,
it.
they charge
People
you
still have issues with printers, though.
Sometimes.
Oh yeah. Well, printers, inkjets, they're a pain in the balls.
Yeah, they're terrible.
Yeah, they're really tough to deal with.
Yeah. Well, the ink still dries out.
Yeah, right. And it's expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big scam.
Yeah. But in the end, it's kind of same thing here, except now we're doing it in a 3D world.
You can make a physical thing, and it's
Yeah.
cool, right? You
Right.
could. I think it's remarkable that if somebody were to design a thing that solved a problem with a product, you could put it on the internet, and other people could download it, and you can make an object from what somebody else designed.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. It's a concept. The concept's there, but unfortunately, the implementation, it's a little difficult right now to have it work well. So Unfortunately, today it's still problematic to have like a community developed headphone, although that's a cool concept. I think people kind of sort of tried with that, but the only way
to
requires so much time.
The only way to really resolve it is you have to be like an Apple in terms of a 3D printer, where
Everybody
everybody
has a
has the same
standardized
printer.
machine,
Yeah. Now we can start rolling.
That would work.
You know, now you've got a worldwide network to make this part on, and it's standardized. You know,
Right.
so that's the only way to make it work.
Well, I guess it all comes down to it is like Apple, like Wozniak and Steve in their garage. They
Yeah.
had to build back then you couldn't just like buy, they had mainframes. You couldn't just buy a desktop, you know?
Yeah.
So they had to work and tinker and build their own computer.
Right.
But now,
But you look at the
You can.
board they made back then.
Yeah, right.
Like obviously for the day that was amazing.
yeah.
But you look at that today, and you could design something better if you're experienced in an afternoon. A lot
Just
of
like
times.
a Pi Zero for $5 and
Right. You could just buy the hardware. It's cheap. It's
Well, what's
ubiquitous.
wild is aren't those things those first computers they built are worth over $1 million.
well, they go for a
There's
lot.
not many of them, so
Yeah,
yeah,
right. Wild when you think about it. You
they're
know?
in demand.
Yeah. Can you imagine the shitty soldering on that thing?
Yeah, they're probably not great, but
Probably not.
you're just making it work.
Yeah,
you
but
know?
those back
They
in the day,
sold
those
them cheap,
chips. Yeah,
Were they like $50 or
I
something?
don't know.
I don't know.
And obviously inflation and all that, but still they were
They were
reasonably affordable.
They were fortunate they didn't have to deal with surface mount at the time. They're
Yeah, well,
able to slap a typical dip chip on the boards,
that's all there was at the time.
Right.
and tack them in there and good to go.
Yeah, there was no like getting like PCBs custom made for $2 back
Yeah,
then.
Oh
right.
yeah,
you know?
now it's remarkably cheap.
Yeah, I wonder if they etched their own PC board for that. I don't know. I didn't know.
No.
Did you ever see? No.
Woz
It's
said
a
that
Pro?
he had to send it out. It was
Yeah.
a bit before that was practical, I guess.
Ah.
I don't know if it's because of the scale, the size, the resolution they needed, but the etching your own thing only really works with modern methods and laser
You need
printers.
Yeah.
You needed
The
what do they call
lithography
it?
is
Yeah,
trouble.
that would be the only way to get a good,
Yeah,
decent board.
now, like laser printers and stuff like that, they have transfer. You could just use, if you use the right paper, you could transfer toner onto the copper pretty well,
Yeah.
and you could etch away.
With an iron.
I remember doing my own boards back in the day when I was
Yeah.
young, and they looked pretty shitty.
You
They
could get
didn't come
really
out
good
with
results.
the etch
you
it.
could do really good
And
now.
now you can, yeah.
Yeah.
Back then we used a pen,
Yeah, well.
and you painted on the board and then shoved it in the chemicals. to
well,
etch.
well, now they just sell those silver
crude.
pens that are conductive.
You
You,
could
can
just
just draw
draw.
on a
Oh,
sheet
yeah,
of paper.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't solder to it.
Well, no.
On that note, we should probably get going. So there you have it in a nutshell. DIY is cool. It's great. It's a learning process. That's what it's all about.
Yep.
And you could carry those skill sets forward in life. So by all means, do it.
Give it a shot.
Yeah, give
It's
it
just
a shot.
pretty difficult.
Yeah, yeah. Don't expect to be an instant success on it. And that's all. And that's kind of everything in life. When you
Mhm.
think about it, it's all the same.
Yeah.
It's all the same. You got to work at it.
Yeah.
Nothing comes.
You don't ride the bike the first time.
Yeah, you're gonna. Expect to fall off a few times. You know.
Maybe you will though, but I would expect maybe.
Stay close to the grass. That's all.
Sure.
Don't go in the street right away.
Mm.
That pavement hurts when you hit it. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care of yourself.